What if you woke up one day and everything felt slightly wrong? A world where places exist that shouldn't. People remember things differently, and reality itself seems to shift. It sounds like science fiction, but hundreds of people claim they've slipped into another reality, a parallel universe. From a man who vanished from a locked room to a woman who woke up with a completely different life. These stories will make you question everything. Stay until the end, because the final case is so disturbing, it might make you question your own reality. Subscribe now and let's dive in.
In 1954, a man arrived at Tokyo's Haneda Airport with a passport from a country that doesn't exist, Taured. His passport had official stamps from multiple countries. His driver's license and bank documents were all from Taured. He insisted Taured had existed for hundreds of years. When police showed him a map, he was confused and frustrated. He pointed to Andorra but claimed that in his world, it was called Taured. Authorities detained him in a guarded hotel room overnight. But by morning, he had completely disappeared. His passport, documents, everything was gone. There was no trace he had ever existed. Some say he was a time traveler stuck in the wrong timeline. Others believe he crossed into another reality. Was this man proof that parallel universes exist? Or was it an elaborate hoax?
In 2008, a woman named Lorena Garcia woke up in her normal apartment, but everything felt slightly wrong. Her bed sheets were different. The clothes in her closet weren't hers. The car parked outside wasn't the one she owned. Then came the biggest shock. Her boyfriend of many years didn't exist. She searched for him, but there was no trace of him anywhere. Even stranger, when she went to work, she discovered that she was employed at a completely different company, a place she had no memory of joining. Terrified, she checked official records. In this version of reality, her ex-boyfriend had died 5 years earlier, yet she vividly remembered him being alive. Was this a glitch in the universe? Had she shifted into another timeline? To this day, her story remains unexplained. In 1972, a man named LC was driving along a remote highway in Spain when something strange happened. It was a route he had driven many times before, but this time, the road looked different. It was wider than usual. The buildings around him looked futuristic. The cars on the highway were sleek and unlike anything he had ever seen. Then, he noticed something even more bizarre. None of the road signs were in Spanish. They were written in an unknown language. Confused and a little panicked, he pulled over. The air felt heavy, as if something was pressing down on him. He turned his car around to go back the way he came, and in an instant, everything was back to normal. The buildings, the road, the cars, all returned to what he had always known. Had he experienced a hallucination, a time slip, or had he unknowingly driven into a parallel universe for just a few moments? To this day, Elsie swears what he saw was real. But if that's true, then where exactly did he go?
In 2012, a man browsing a secondhand bookstore in Paris made a chilling discovery. He found a book that shouldn't exist. The pages were filled with symbols and words from no known language. The writing didn't match any human script, past or present. The illustrations showed landscapes and cities that don't exist anywhere on Earth. Even stranger, the book had no title, no author, and no publication records. It was as if it had come from nowhere. Experts examined it but couldn't match the language to anything known. Linguists, historians, and cryptographers all failed to decode it. Where did it come from? Some believe it may have slipped through a rift between realities, evidence of a parallel world with a different written language. Others think it could be an elaborate hoax. But the book remains a complete mystery, with no explanation for its origins. Was it a lost relic from another dimension, or something created by an unknown civilization? In 1994, a 5-year-old boy from Argentina mysteriously vanished while playing outside. His parents searched frantically for hours, but he was nowhere to be found. Then, 6 hours later, he reappeared, miles away from where he had gone missing. But something about him was different. The boy, who had only ever spoken Spanish, was now speaking fluent Portuguese, a language he had never learned. He also described places he had never been to, claiming he had lived with another family that didn't exist in this reality. Doctors examined him, but found no signs of trauma or memory loss. His parents insisted he had never been exposed to Portuguese before, yet he spoke it effortlessly, as if he had lived in a different country his entire life. Had he unknowingly crossed into another dimension, swapping places with another version of himself? Or was this just an unexplainable psychological phenomenon? To this day, no one has been able to explain how a young child disappeared and returned with knowledge of a life he was never supposed to have. In 2010, a woman in the UK woke up and immediately noticed something was wrong. Her entire reality felt different. Her furniture was rearranged, as if someone had moved it overnight. Her phone contained new contacts she didn't recognize. Messages from friends mentioned events that she had no memory of ever happening. But the strangest part? A famous celebrity that she knew had died years ago was suddenly alive again. She checked old news articles and social media, but there was no record of their death. Her family and friends insisted she was mistaken, but she remembered it clearly. Had she unknowingly shifted into a parallel universe, one where small details of her life had changed? Or was it a case of the Mandela Effect, where entire groups of people recall historical events differently? Whatever happened that night, she was left with one haunting question. Was this really her world? In 1935, a British pilot named Victor Goddard was flying over an abandoned airfield when something strange happened. As he approached, he was suddenly engulfed by a dense, white cloud. The sky darkened, and his plane began shaking violently. For a few moments, he felt weightless, as if he had lost all sense of time. Then, just as quickly as it began, the turbulence stopped, and what he saw next left him in shock. The once abandoned airfield below him was now fully operational. The runways looked brand new, and several modern aircraft, models that didn't exist in 1935, were lined up neatly. Even the buildings had been repainted a bright yellow, a color that had never been used at that airfield before. Terrified, he quickly turned his plane around and flew back into the strange mist. When he emerged, everything had returned to normal. The airfield was abandoned once again. For years later, in 1939, the same airfield was renovated and its buildings were painted yellow. The aircraft Victor had seen? They matched the exact models that had just been introduced. Had he traveled into the future? Or had he briefly slipped into another version of reality?
These stories challenge everything we know about reality. Did these people truly experience a glitch in the universe? Or did they slip into a parallel version of Earth? Hundreds of unexplained cases suggest that reality isn't as stable as we think. Some believe they prove the existence of alternate dimensions. Others say they're just tricks of the mind. One thing is certain: these mysteries continue to defy explanation. If you love uncovering the world's strangest events, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new mystery. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.